Hello, my name is Margaret Ellen Crawford. I'm 47 years old, and I'm going to tell you the story of how I discovered at 19 that what I thought were romantic candlelit dinners were actually my mother's desperate way of hiding that our electricity had been shut off for non-payment. Before I go any further, if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people who grew up like we did find this video and know they're not alone, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that matter. It was 1983. I was 7 years old, and I genuinely believed my mother was the most creative, fun mom in our neighborhood. While other families ate dinner under boring bright lights, we had what Mama called special candlelight suppers at least twice a month. "It's elegant, Maggie," she'd whisper, lighting the thick white candle in the middle of our small kitchen table. "Like we're in a fancy restaurant in Paris. Can't you just imagine it?" And I could. Oh, I could imagine it so vividly. We lived in a small rental house on Sycamore Street in Toledo, Ohio. The house was painted a faded yellow that Mama said looked buttery and warm in the summer sun, though looking back, it was probably just sun-bleached and peeling. The front porch sagged on one side, making it perfect for rolling marbles. I spent hours out there with my brother Danny, racing our collection of cat's eyes and Aggies down that slanted wooden floor. Inside, the house smelled like a mixture of things I can still conjure up perfectly. Mama's Jergens hand lotion, the slightly musty odor from the carpet that never quite dried after it rained, and whatever she was cooking on the stove, usually beans, rice, or if we were lucky, hamburger helper. Mama worked as a seamstress at Feldman's Alterations downtown. She'd leave the house at 7:15 every morning, her fingers already pricked with tiny dots of dried blood from the previous day's work, her eyes tired but determined. I remember she always wore the same navy blue cardigan, even in summer, because the shop was cold as a meat locker, she'd say. My father, well, he'd left when I was 4. I barely remembered him, just flashes. A man who smelled like motor oil and cigarettes, a deep laugh that would shake his whole body, and then one day, the sound of the screen door slamming and Mama crying in her bedroom for what felt like weeks. After that, it was just Mama, me, and Danny, who was 3 years younger than me. We were a tight little unit. Danny and I shared a bedroom at the back of the house. We had bunk beds that wobbled when you climbed the ladder. Mama had gotten them at a yard sale for $12, and she'd been so proud of that deal. I slept on top because I was older, and Danny got the bottom bunk, which he decorated with drawings he made at school. His favorite was a crayon picture of our family, 3 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. In those days, I thought we had everything we needed. Our daily routine felt completely normal to me. Mama would wake us at 6:30, even though school didn't start until 8:45. She needed that extra time to get herself ready for work, make us breakfast, usually oatmeal or toast, sometimes scrambled eggs if we were lucky, and walk us to the bus stop before catching her own bus downtown. "Breakfast is the most important meal of the day," she'd say, standing at the stove in her slip and that cardigan, her hair still in rollers. "You eat every bite, you hear me?" We'd eat at that same kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg that Mama had propped up with a folded magazine. The table was covered with a vinyl cloth printed with tiny red cherries. I loved tracing those cherries with my finger while Mama quizzed Danny on his spelling words. After school, we'd walk home. It was only 4 blocks from Lincoln Elementary. Mrs. Chen from next door had a key to our house and would let us in around 3:30. She was an elderly Chinese woman who spoke very little English, but who always had a cookie for each of us. Always. Never missed a day. We'd do our homework at that cherry print table, then watch TV until Mama got home around 6. We had an old Zenith television with rabbit ear antennas that you had to adjust just right to get a clear picture. Danny was better at it than me. He had the patience to stand there, moving the antenna millimeter by millimeter until Scooby-Doo came in clear. Then Mama would come home, exhausted, her fingers bleeding from needle pricks, her shoulders slumped. But she'd always smile when she saw us. "How are my babies today?" she'd ask, setting down her purse, a worn brown leather thing with a broken zipper that she'd safety pinned shut. Then she'd start dinner. This is where the candlelight comes in. Maybe twice a month, sometimes 3 times, Mama would announce. "Tonight's a candlelight supper night." Danny and I would cheer. We loved candlelight nights. Mama would pull out that thick white candle. I remember it was in a glass holder, the kind you'd see in a church. She'd place it right in the center of the table, light it with a match from the book she kept by the stove, and then she'd turn off the kitchen light. "There," she'd say softly, her face glowing in the warm candlelight. "Doesn't this feel special?" It did. It felt magical. The whole room would transform. The peeling wallpaper with its faded flower pattern looked romantic instead of shabby. Mama's tired face looked younger, softer. Even our simple dinner, beans and cornbread, or spaghetti with butter and salt, seemed fancier somehow. "In France," Mama would tell us, "families eat by candlelight every single night. It's civilized. It's how people who appreciate the finer things in life dine." She said dine instead of eat, and I loved that. Sometimes she'd put on a record. She had an old Nat King Cole album that was so scratched it skipped in 3 places, but we knew exactly when the skips would come, and we'd just wait them out. Unforgettable, playing in the background, the candle flickering, Mama's face peaceful for once. I thought we were the luckiest kids in the world. If you're watching this and remembering similar moments from your own childhood, please leave a comment below. I want to hear your stories too. What did your parents do that you thought was normal? I never questioned why the candlelight suppers were always on specific days. Never asked why they seemed to cluster around the same time each month. Never wondered why Mama would sometimes look so relieved when she could turn the kitchen light back on the next day. I just thought my mother was creative, fun, different. My best friend Jennifer lived 3 houses down, and her family was different from ours. Her dad worked at the Jeep plant, and her mom stayed home. They had a wood-paneled station wagon and a color TV. We only had black and white. Jennifer always had new clothes at the start of the school year, and her lunchbox matched her backpack. But even Jennifer was impressed by our candlelight suppers. "That's so cool," she said once when I told her about it. My mom would never think of something like that. She just yells at us to hurry up and eat so she can watch Dallas. See? Even to other kids, we seemed special. There were other things that I thought were normal, too. Like how Mama would check the mail every single day, standing at our mailbox at the end of the driveway for a long time, flipping through envelopes with this look on her face. Worried, calculating. I thought she was just really interested in mail, or how she'd sometimes make me and Danny take a bath together, even though I was getting older and felt weird about it. "Conserves hot water," she'd say cheerfully. "Better for the environment." I thought my mom was an early environmentalist, or how our house was always a little colder than Jennifer's house. "Fresh air is healthy," Mama would say, putting another blanket on our beds. "Builds character, makes you hardy." I thought we were being raised to be tough, resilient. Mama had this amazing ability to make everything sound intentional, chosen, better than the alternative. And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? The summer I turned 13, something small happened that should have tipped me off, but it didn't. Not yet. It was July, brutally hot. The kind of Ohio heat that makes the air feel thick and hard to breathe. Most of our neighbors had box fans running in their windows, or if they were really well off, actual air conditioning units. We had neither. "Fans just blow hot air around," Mama explained. "They don't actually cool anything down. We're better off just keeping the windows open and staying hydrated." She made us lemonade from the powder mix, country time, and we'd sit on that sagging porch in the shade, sweating through our clothes. One afternoon, Mrs. Chen came over with a small, oscillating fan. "For the children," she said in her broken English, gesturing to me and Danny. "Too hot." Mama's face did something I'd never seen before. Her eyes got wet and her mouth trembled, but she was smiling at the same time. "That's so kind of you, Mrs. Chen, but we couldn't possibly—" "Please," Mrs. Chen insisted, practically pushing the fan into Mama's hands. "I have two. Only need one." Mama took it. She hugged Mrs. Chen, and I saw tears actually roll down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." I remember thinking it was weird to cry over a fan, but I figured Mama was just emotional because it was such a nice gesture. That fan ran in our bedroom all summer. It was glorious. High school came. I went to Woodward High School, about 2 miles from our house. I could have taken the bus, but I usually walked with a group of friends. This was the mid-1990s now. I was starting to notice differences more acutely. My friends had things I didn't. Beepers clipped to their JNCOs, CD players, Doc Martens, flannel shirts from the mall instead of from Goodwill. But I also had things they didn't. Mama had taught me to sew. I could take a thrift store dress and remake it into something unique. I became known for my style, my creativity. "That's so vintage," my friends would say, and I'd smile, not telling them that vintage meant I found it for $3 at St. Vincent de Paul. The candlelight suppers continued, though less frequently, maybe once a month now. By this time, I was old enough to think it was a little weird, a little childish, but Mama seemed to enjoy it so much that I played along. Danny was 10 now and thought it was stupid, but he'd sit through it because Mama asked him to. I started to notice that the candlelight suppers happened around the same time every month, usually toward the end of the month. Usually after Mama had spent a long time looking through the mail with that worried expression. But I still didn't put it together. Sometimes I'd flip the light switch during a candlelight supper, just out of habit, reaching for the switch as I walked into the kitchen. "No," Mama would say sharply, more sharply than necessary. "We're having a candlelight supper, remember? Don't ruin the ambiance." "Sorry," I'd mutter, feeling stupid. The light switch would click under my finger. Click up, nothing. Click down, nothing. And I'd sit back down at the table, never thinking about what that meant. I graduated high school in 1996. I was 18, working part-time at a Kroger grocery store, saving money for community college. Mama wanted me to go to college so badly. It was all she talked about. "You're going to be the first Crawford to get a degree," she'd say, beaming with pride. "You're going to have opportunities I never had." I was taking classes at Owens Community College, just general education courses, figuring out what I wanted to study. I was thinking maybe teaching. I loved kids, and the idea of having summers off appealed to me. Danny was in high school now, playing JV basketball, growing like a weed. He was already taller than Mama and almost as tall as me. We'd moved to a slightly bigger rental house on the east side of Toledo. This one had 3 bedrooms. Danny finally got his own room, which he was ecstatic about. It also had a small backyard where Mama planted tomatoes and green beans every summer. "There's nothing like fresh vegetables," she'd say, tending her little garden plot. "And it saves us money at the store." I thought she just enjoyed gardening. The incident that changed everything happened in November of 1997. I was 19 years old. It was a Thursday evening. I remember because I'd just finished my shift at Kroger, and I was exhausted. We'd been slammed all day with people buying food for Thanksgiving, which was a week away. I came home to find the house dark, completely dark. This wasn't unusual. It was only 6:30 p.m., but it got dark early in November. The street lights were on outside, and I could see lights in the neighbors' houses, but ours was dark. I opened the front door. "Mama, Danny!" In the kitchen, baby, Mama called out. I walked through the dark living room, guided by the faint glow coming from the kitchen. When I entered, I saw them. Mama and Danny sitting at the table with that same white candle burning between them, eating spaghetti. "Candlelight supper," Mama said brightly, but her voice had a forced quality to it. "Isn't this nice? It's been so long since we've done this." Danny was 16 now, and he just looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. "Come sit down, Maggie. Your plate's right here." I sat down, but something felt off. The house felt wrong. It was cold, really cold. Usually by this time of night, the furnace would have kicked on at least once, warming things up, but I could see my breath misting slightly in the air. "Mama, it's freezing in here." "I know, honey. Furnace is acting up again. I called the repair guy. He's coming tomorrow. Tonight we'll just bundle up. Builds character, right?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I ate my spaghetti in silence, watching the candle flicker. After dinner, Danny went to his room. I heard him shut the door. Mama started washing dishes at the sink. I went to help her, reaching automatically for the light switch by the kitchen doorway. I flipped it. Nothing. I flipped it again. Still nothing. "Mama, the light's not working." "I know, baby. The bulb burned out." "Should I get a new one from the—" "No," she said quickly. "I mean, we're out of bulbs. I'll pick some up tomorrow." Something in my brain clicked. I walked into the living room and flipped that light switch. Nothing. Into the bathroom, flipped the switch. Nothing. Down the hallway. Switch after switch after switch. Nothing, nothing, nothing. My heart started pounding. I went back into the kitchen. Mama was still washing dishes, her back to me, her shoulders rigid. "Mama!" "None of the lights are working." "Like I said, honey, we'll get bulbs. It's not the bulbs." Silence. "Mama, did the power get shut off?" Her hands stopped moving in the soapy water. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then, very quietly, "It's just temporary, baby. I'm handling it." The words hit me like a physical blow. The power was shut off. "How long?" I asked. "What?" "How long has the power been off?" "Just since this morning. I'll have it back on by—" "No," I interrupted. "I mean, how long has this been happening? The candlelight suppers. They weren't about being fancy, were they? Please leave a comment below if you've ever had a moment like this. A moment when everything you thought was true suddenly shifted. I need to know I'm not alone in this." Mama finally turned to face me. In the candlelight, she looked so much older than her 43 years. Her face was drawn, tired, the lines around her eyes deeper than I'd ever noticed. "Maggie, please." "How long, Mama?" She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet with tears. "It started when you were about 7, she whispered. "Your father had just left. I was trying to keep things together, but the child support never came. And my job at Feldman's, I was only making minimum wage. Sometimes I couldn't cover everything. The electric bill, the rent, food. I had to make choices." I felt like the floor was tilting under my feet. 7? I'm 19 now. That's 12 years. "Not every month," Mama said quickly. "Just sometimes. When things got tight. I'd pay what I could. They'd shut it off for a few days. I'd scrape together the reconnection fee and the past due amount, and we'd be okay again. Until the next time." "The candlelight suppers," I said, my voice hollow. "They were because we had no electricity." She nodded, tears streaming down her face now. "And the cold house. That wasn't the furnace breaking. That was no power for the furnace." Another nod. "And taking baths together to conserve hot water. I couldn't afford to heat that much water on the stove," Mama whispered. "It was easier to heat one bathtub full than 2. Everything was crashing down around me. Every memory, every moment I thought was special or fun or quirky was actually... We were poor. I said out loud, testing the words. We've been poor this whole time. We've been struggling, yes, but baby, I never wanted you to what? To know? To understand that we couldn't afford basic utilities? To feel less than, Mama's voice cracked. To feel like you were missing out. To feel poor. She practically spat the word. I wanted you to have a childhood, Maggie. A real childhood, where you could just be a kid without worrying about whether we'd eat that week or whether the lights would be on. That was my job to worry about, not yours. I stood there, my mind reeling, connecting dots I should have connected years ago. The way Mama always carried a can of soup in her purse, in case we get hungry while we're out. But we never actually ate them. She was saving them for emergencies, wasn't she? The way she'd tell us the grocery store was out of whatever we asked for, when really she couldn't afford it. The way she'd say she wasn't hungry at dinner and would only eat a few bites, always making sure Danny and I had full plates. Oh my God, I breathed. You haven't been eating, have you? You give us the food and tell us you're not hungry. I eat enough. Mama! She looked away. I thought back to all those years, all those candlelight suppers, sitting there in the romantic glow, thinking we were so cultured and European and special, while my mother sat across from me, having just gotten her power shut off, trying desperately to make it seem fun instead of desperate. I complained, I said suddenly, the memory hitting me like a truck. I complained about not having Doc Martens, about having to wear thrift store clothes, about not having a beeper. And you were sitting there having not eaten a full meal in God knows how long, and I complained about shoes. You were a teenager. Teenagers complain. That's normal. It's not normal, I practically shouted. None of this is normal. You shouldn't have had to choose between electricity and food. You shouldn't have had to go hungry so we could eat. You shouldn't have had to pretend our poverty was some kind of adventure. I was crying now too, hot, angry tears streaming down my face. Mama came toward me, tried to put her arms around me, but I stepped back. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded. Why didn't you let me help? I've been working at Kroger for 2 years now. I could have helped pay bills. I could have... You're saving for college. Screw college! We need electricity. Don't you dare, Mama said fiercely, her voice suddenly strong. Don't you dare give up on college because of this. That's exactly what I didn't want. This is temporary, Maggie. We're going to be fine. But your education, that's permanent. That's your ticket out of this. Out of what? Out of this. She gestured around the dark kitchen. Out of candlelight suppers that aren't romantic, they're just the only option. Out of choosing between paying rent and paying the electric bill. Out of wondering if this is the month you'll lose it all. We stood there, facing each other across that old kitchen table with its wobbly leg, the candle burning between us, and for the first time in my life, I saw my mother not as Mama, the strong woman who always had a solution, but as a human being who was barely holding it together. And I saw myself, spoiled, oblivious, living in a fantasy world while my mother sacrificed everything to maintain it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, the same bed I'd slept in for years, under blankets I thought were cozy, and now realized were necessary because we often couldn't afford heat. And I thought about everything. Every memory felt tainted now. Every fun thing Mama had done was actually a creative way to hide our poverty. The camping trips in the backyard during summer. That was because it was too hot inside without air conditioning, wasn't it? The picnics at the park every week, that was free entertainment because we couldn't afford anything else. The fashion shows, where Mama would help me put together outfits from my thrift store clothes. That was her way of making me feel good about not having new clothes. I thought about all the times I'd brought friends over and Mama would magically produce snacks, cookies, crackers, little bags of chips. But I'd never seen those things in our cabinets before. Where had she gotten them? And then I remembered Mrs. Chen, the neighbors, Mama's friend Diane from work. They'd been helping us all along, and I'd never noticed. I felt like the most selfish, oblivious person in the world. Around 3 a.m., I got up and walked through the dark house. It was so cold I could see my breath. In the living room, wrapped in a blanket on the couch, was Mama. She wasn't asleep. I could see her eyes open, staring at the ceiling. "Mama?" She turned her head toward me. "Can't sleep either?" I sat down on the edge of the couch. We were quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry," I finally said. "You have nothing to be sorry for, baby." I was so stupid, so blind. How did I not see it? Mama reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were cold, and I could feel the calluses from years of sewing, the rough patches from needle pricks. "You didn't see it because I didn't want you to see it," she said softly. "That was the whole point. I wanted you to be a kid, to have joy, to not carry the weight that I was carrying. But I could have helped. You did help. Every time you came home happy from school, every time you showed me a good grade, every time you laughed at dinner, that helped. That's what kept me going." She squeezed my hand. "When your father left," she continued, "I made a promise to myself. I promised that you and Danny would never feel abandoned, would never feel less than, would never go without the important things. Food is important, Mama. Electricity is important. I know, and I've kept the lights on more months than not. We've had food on the table every single day. No, it wasn't steak and lobster, but it was food, nutritious food. You and Danny never went to bed hungry, not once. I thought about this. It was true. We'd always had dinner. Always." "But you did," I said quietly. "You went to bed hungry so we wouldn't." She didn't deny it. We sat in silence for a while. Finally I said, "I'm using my Kroger money to pay the electric bill. Don't argue with me." "Maggie, I mean it, Mama. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm 19 years old. I work. I live here. I pay bills. That's how it's going to be from now on." I could see her face in the faint light from the street lamp outside. She was crying again, but she was also smiling. "You're so stubborn," she said. "You get that from me." "I get a lot of things from you." That next morning I went to the electric company before my shift at Kroger. The bill was $347.82. That included the past due amount and the reconnection fee. I had $8.91 in my savings account, money I'd been putting away for tuition and books for the next semester at community college. I paid the bill in full, in cash. The woman behind the counter barely looked at me. "Service will be restored within 24 hours. Can you make it faster? There's a $50 rush fee for same-day service." "I'll pay it." She processed it, gave me a receipt, told me someone would be out between noon and 3 p.m. I went home. Mama was at work. Danny was at school. I sat in that dark, cold house and waited. At 1:47 p.m., a truck pulled up. A man in a utility company uniform went to the side of the house where the meter was. I watched through the window. 5 minutes later, I heard a hum. A beautiful mechanical hum. I went to the kitchen and flipped the light switch. Light. Beautiful, bright, ordinary, miraculous light. I turned it off, turned it on again, off, on, off, on. I went to every room in the house, flipping every switch, watching lights come on, feeling the furnace kick in, hearing the refrigerator start its familiar hum. I sat down at the kitchen table, that same table with the cherry print vinyl cloth, and I cried, just sobbed, because we had electricity. Such a simple thing, such a basic thing, and it had broken my heart that we'd gone without it. When Mama came home that evening, she opened the door to a brightly lit house and stopped in the doorway. "Maggie?" I was in the kitchen, making dinner, with the lights on. She came in slowly, looking around like she couldn't quite believe it. "How did you—" "I paid it. The whole thing. It's taken care of." "With your college money?" "With my money. My money that I earned. My money that I get to decide how to spend. She looked like she was going to argue, but then she just crumpled, sat down at the table and put her head in her hands and cried. I sat down next to her. I'm not giving up on college, Mama. I'm still going. I'll just take one less class next semester and work more hours. It'll be fine. I didn't want this for you, I know. But this is reality, and we're going to handle it, together, not just you carrying everything alone. She looked up at me, her face blotchy from crying. When did you get so grown up? I've been grown up. You just didn't want to see it, because then you'd have to admit you needed help. She laughed a little, wiping her eyes. That night we had dinner with all the lights on, every single light in the house. Danny came home from basketball practice and stopped in the doorway just like Mama had. Are we rich now or something? He joked. No, I said. We're just not in the dark anymore. If this story is hitting home for you, please subscribe to this channel. There are more stories like this one, stories that need to be told, and your subscription helps make sure they get seen. Over the next few weeks, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I noticed that Mama's lunch was always leftovers from a big dinner she'd made over the weekend, but I never remembered her making any big dinners. I noticed that she wore the same 3 outfits to work, rotating them, washing them by hand at night to save on water and electricity for the washing machine. I noticed that she'd dye her hair at home with box color, cutting it herself with kitchen scissors because she couldn't afford a salon. I noticed that her shoes had holes in the soles that she'd covered with duct tape on the inside, so you couldn't see it when she was wearing them. I noticed that when I opened the medicine cabinet, there was children's Tylenol for Danny and regular Tylenol for me, but nothing for Mama's constant headaches except a single ancient bottle of aspirin with maybe 3 pills left. I noticed everything I'd been blind to for 19 years, and I started doing something about it. I increased my hours at Kroger, went from 20 hours a week to 35, dropped from 4 classes to 2, used my employee discount to buy groceries, stocking our cabinets with things we'd never had regularly. Cereal, snacks, real butter instead of margarine, name-brand bread instead of the day-old discount stuff. Mama protested at first. You're supposed to be focusing on school. I'm focusing on life, Mama. School is part of life. So is eating. So is keeping the lights on. We're doing all of it. I made her show me all the bills, laid them out on that kitchen table. Rent, $425 a month. Utilities, around $150 if we were careful. Phone, $35. Car insurance for Mama's 1987 Buick, $60. The groceries. We were spending about $200 a month, but I thought we could do better with my employee discount and smart shopping. Mama made about $900 a month at Feldman's. My Kroger paychecks at 35 hours a week came to about $600 a month after taxes. Together, we were making $1,500 a month. Our basic expenses were around $1,000 to $1,100. For the first time in 12 years, we had breathing room. Not much, but some. We can do this, I told Mama. We can actually do this. But knowing the truth changed me in ways I couldn't have predicted. I became angry. Really angry. Angry at my father for leaving and never sending a dime of child support. Angry at a system that paid my mother poverty wages for skilled work. Angry at myself for being so oblivious for so long. Angry at the casually cruel world where keeping your electricity on was a luxury some people couldn't afford. I started seeing poverty everywhere I'd never noticed it before. The kid at school who always wore the same pair of jeans, I thought he just really liked those jeans. Now I saw it differently. The woman who came through my checkout line at Kroger, who paid in food stamps and counted out exact change for the items that weren't covered, her hands shaking, her face red with shame. I thought she was just slow and annoying. Now I saw my mother, the family I'd gone to elementary school with who moved away suddenly in the middle of the year. I thought they'd just relocated for a job. Now I realized they'd probably been evicted. I couldn't unsee it. Once you see poverty, really see it, you can't go back to not seeing it. And I was furious that I'd lived in it for 19 years without recognizing it. One night, about a month after the electricity incident, I exploded at dinner. We were eating something I'd made, spaghetti with actual meat sauce because I could afford meat now. And Mama said something casual about how she'd walked past a really cute dress at Feldman's today. "Why didn't you buy it?" I asked. "Oh, I don't need a new dress." "Mama, you've been wearing the same 3 outfits for years. They're perfectly fine. They're falling apart. You deserve new clothes. You deserve nice things." "Maggie, it's fine. It's not fine." I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "None of this is fine. You've been sacrificing every single thing for us for 12 years, and you can't even buy yourself a dress." Danny, who was 13 now and generally oblivious to everything except basketball and video games, looked up from his plate, startled. "We have money now, Mama. We can afford a dress. We can afford more than one dress. We can afford things." "Maggie, please." "Buy the damn dress." I stormed out of the kitchen, went to my room, slammed the door, sat on my bed shaking. A few minutes later, Mama knocked softly. "Can I come in?" "Yeah." She sat on the edge of my bed. We were quiet for a moment. "I'm not used to this," she finally said. "Used to what?" "Having enough. For so long there wasn't enough. I got used to going without. I got good at it. And now, even when there is enough, I don't know how to let myself have it." I looked at her, this woman who'd raised me and Danny alone, who'd worked herself to the bone, who'd turned our poverty into games and adventures and candlelight suppers. "You have to learn," I said. "You have to let yourself have things, please, for me." She smiled a little. "I'll try." "Buy the dress." "Okay." "Promise?" "I promise." She did buy the dress. It was navy blue with little white flowers on it, and it cost 28 pistoles, which she agonized over for a week before actually purchasing. But she bought it, and she wore it to church the following Sunday, and I saw her stand a little taller, smile a little brighter. Such a small thing, a 28 alos dress, but it meant everything. That same year, something else happened that changed our trajectory. Danny, who'd been playing JV basketball, got really good, like really good. By his sophomore year, he made varsity. By his junior year, scouts were coming to his games. He had a gift, a real, genuine gift. And that gift came with scholarship offers. Not full rides, he was good, but not that good. But partial scholarships to decent schools. Enough that with some financial aid and maybe a part-time job, he could actually go to college. Mama cried when the first letter came. Just sat at the kitchen table with the letter in her hands, tears streaming down her face. "2," she whispered. "2 of my babies are going to college." I'd managed to keep taking classes at Owens, slowly working toward my associate degree. It was taking me twice as long as a traditional student, but I was doing it. And Danny was going to have opportunities neither Mama nor I had ever dreamed of. The kid who'd shared a bunk bed with his sister, who'd taken baths with her to save hot water, who'd eaten by candlelight thinking it was an adventure, that kid was going to college. I'm going to skip ahead now. Fast forward through several years. I finished my associate degree in 2001. Took me 5 years instead of 2, but I did it. I transferred to the University of Toledo and got my bachelor's in education in 2004. I became a teacher, 3rd grade. I make about $35,000 a year now, which isn't much, but it's more than Mama ever made. Danny got his scholarship, went to Bowling Green State University, graduated in 2005 with a degree in business. He works in Cleveland now, making good money at a marketing firm. And Mama finally retired from Feldman's in 2008. at age 54. Her hands were so damaged from years of sewing that she could barely hold a needle anymore. She gets a small pension and Social Security. She lives with me now, in my house. A small house I bought in 2011. Nothing fancy, just a 3-bedroom ranch in a decent neighborhood. But it's mine, and it has electricity. Every single day, no matter what. We still have candlelight suppers sometimes, but now they're a choice, not a necessity. About once a month, usually on a Sunday, I'll cook something nice. Maybe a roast, or lasagna, or Mama's spaghetti with meat sauce. And I'll pull out candles, and we'll turn off the lights and eat by candlelight. But here's the thing. Before we do, I always flip the light switch, on and off, just to make sure it works, just to remind myself that we have the power to turn it back on whenever we want. Mama notices this. Every time. The first time I did it after she moved in with me, she watched me flip the switch 3 times, on, off, before I finally left it off and lit the candles. "You don't have to do that, baby," she said softly. I know. The electricity's not going anywhere. I know, but I need to check. I need to know it's there. She understood. Here's what I want you to understand if you grew up like I did. Poverty isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's hiding in plain sight, disguised as creativity, adventure, or preference. Sometimes it looks like candlelight suppers. Sometimes it looks like camping in the backyard in July because it's too hot inside. Sometimes it looks like a mom who's just not hungry at dinner. Sometimes it looks like wearing the same 3 outfits and calling it a capsule wardrobe. Sometimes it looks like a parent who's really good at making poverty seem like a choice instead of a reality. And if you were the kid who didn't notice, who thought it was all normal or even fun, don't beat yourself up. That was the whole point. Your parents worked hard to shield you from the reality. They succeeded. They loved you enough to carry that weight so you wouldn't have to. But now that you see it, now that you understand, honor that sacrifice. Not by feeling guilty, but by doing better, by breaking the cycle, by making sure that if you have kids, they never have to eat by candlelight because the power's been shut off. Last month I was cleaning out some boxes in my closet and I found it. That white candle in the glass holder. The same one. I recognized it instantly. The glass was slightly chipped on one side, just like I remembered. Mama had kept it all these years. I brought it to her. "Look what I found." She took it, turning it over in her hands, and she smiled. "Our candlelight supper candle." "Why did you keep it?" "Because for all the hard times we were together. And we were happy, weren't we? Even in the dark, we found light." She's right, we did. We found light in Nat King Cole skipping on the record player. We found light in Mama's stories about Paris and fancy restaurants. We found light in each other. The poverty was real. The struggle was real. The going without was real. But so was the love. So was the resourcefulness. So was the resilience. I'm 47 years old now. Mama is 71. Danny is 44, married with 2 kids of his own. Last Christmas, we all gathered at my house. Me, Mama, Danny, his wife Sarah, and their kids, Jake and Emma, who are 7 and 5. We had a huge dinner. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, 3 kinds of pie. Way too much food. Leftovers for days. After dinner, while the kids were playing with their new toys in the living room, I said to Mama and Danny, "Want to have a candlelight supper for old time's sake?" Mama looked uncertain. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." I got out that old white candle. It's much smaller now. We've burned it dozens of times over the years, but it still works. I placed it in the center of the table, and before I lit it, I walked over to the light switch, flipped it on, off. The lights worked perfectly. Then I turned them off, lit the candle, and sat down with my mother and brother at the table. "Remember when we used to do this?" Danny asked. "Every month like clockwork," Mama said. and there was a sadness in her voice, but also pride. I thought it was so cool, Danny continued. I thought we were the luckiest kids because we got to eat by candlelight. You were lucky, Mama said firmly. Maybe not in the ways I wished you were, but you were loved. You were fed. You were safe. That's lucky. She's right about that too. If you're watching this video and you're struggling right now, if you're choosing between electricity and food, between rent and medicine, between gas for your car and heat for your house, I see you. I know what it's like to pretend everything's fine when it's falling apart. I know what it's like to turn scarcity into a game so your kids won't be scared. I know what it's like to go without so they can have. You're not alone. And if you're watching this and you're the kid who just realized, maybe for the first time, that you grew up poor, that all those fun things were actually creative poverty management, I see you too. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to grieve for the childhood you thought you had. But also know this, your parents loved you. They loved you so much that they made poverty look like an adventure. They protected you from the weight of it for as long as they could. That's not nothing. That's everything. Before I go, I want to ask you to do something for me. If your parents are still alive, if the people who sacrificed for you, who made magic out of nothing, who turned darkness into candlelight, are still here, call them today. You don't have to have a big emotional conversation. You don't have to say, I finally understand what you went through. Just call them, tell them you love them, tell them thank you. Because the truth is, candlelight was never a luxury we couldn't afford. Love was the luxury, and we had it in abundance. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please leave a comment telling me about your own experience. What did your parents do that you thought was normal but later realized was poverty? I read every single comment, and I want to hear from you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And remember, we might not have been rich in money, but we were rich in love. And sometimes, in the end, that's the only thing that really matters. Take care of yourselves. And turn on a light today, just because you can.